When you hear of Texas, you might be inclined to think of rural countrysides and cowboys. And outside a couple large cities, you'll be right. I'm here to tell you a story that happened in one of those remote areas that I'll never go back to. Wait, I should tell you first who I am and how this began. My name is Aaron. I'm a geneticist and I'm from California and spent most of my time working there. This all started when I was 25. I was getting to the point where people in the medical community started to recognize me and my work in the lab. I then got a call. Hello, Dr. Aaron. Would you mind having a meeting tomorrow? Yeah, sure. What time do you want me to be there? Be here by 5 p.m. sharp. I was so excited. I thought I was about to get a big opportunity related to my work. Was I right? Well, technically yeah. But at what cost? Hello, Dr. Aaron. It's a pleasure to meet you. Please, sit down. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. So, why did you call me in for a meeting? We were really impressed by the last couple research papers you wrote regarding the impact of external factors on human genetics. So, we wanted to call you in to take part in an experiment. Okay, what kind of experiment? Before I can tell you anything, please sign this NDA. We have a secret medical facility on the outskirts of San Antonio, Texas. Seeing you're currently one of the best geneticists we can find, we need you to analyze the genes from samples taken during the experiment. Okay, again, I'll ask, what type of experiment is this? What's the objective of this study? We will be injecting a certain substance into the test patients. Wait, is this safe? Is this even approved by the ethics committee? That's why I asked you to sign the NDA. I apologize, but I think I'll pass, sir. Thank you though for giving me this opportunity. The man now hands me a sticky note with the number 2 million. I of course didn't question anything else after that point. I took my cash and signed all the contracts. The saying, everything has a price, is sadly true. I got prepared to head to Texas in 2 weeks. 3 days later, I was flown from San Diego to a small airport in the middle of nowhere. When I arrived, there was a man in an older pickup truck waiting outside as I stepped off of the plane. Dr. Aaron, I presume. Right this way, please. As we drove, I looked out the windows and attempted small talk, but this man was very short in his responses. After about a 2-hour ride, we pulled onto what looked like a ranch or farm. Again, I'm from the big city, so I'm not sure what you'd call it, but anyways. We drove about another 15 minutes and he pulled over and hopped out. He pulled a keycard off his neck and pushed it against a large tree. I was very confused, but then I felt a strong vibration slowly going from my feet to my chest. The ground opened up in front of what looked like a ramp going underground. He got back into the truck and drove down, saying, "Welcome to the San Antonio Research Facility." I was amazed at the size of this complex hidden under a field in the middle of nowhere. And as we pulled up to a stop, I was in awe. This man now escorted me to a room. Another man now comes out of one of the rooms to greet me. "Hello, Dr. Aaron. I've heard great things about you." "Thank you very much. So, where do we get started?" "I want you to go have a meeting real quick with the people we'll be working with in the room ahead of us." I then walked in to see that I wasn't the only scientist here. 8 other scientists and doctors were here as well. 2 of them were also geneticists, like me. 3 other were neurologists, and 2 of them were medical doctors. We all greeted each other and got to know one another. After a good 30 minutes of talking, the same man that led me into the room now puts a file on the table and asks us to oversee it. The file explains the goal of this project and each of our roles. The goal of this project is to inject a modified version of LSD into the patients and study the effects. My role was to analyze and check any genetical changes from the patients. The neurologist's role was to monitor the brain activity, and the doctors were there to oversee all the practical parts of the project, from injecting the substance and handling the patients. We all then got our equipment ready and waited for commands to head to the room where we would perform the experiment. "Hello, ladies and gentlemen, please follow me." We were then led to a room with a glass window separating all of us from the patients. The patients were then called in, and this sight still haunts me and fills me with anger till this day. Walking into the room were children. Goddamn children. What kind of fucked up shit was this? I turned to look at all of my associates with shocked faces as well. Have you ever seen those posted pictures at Walmart saying "missing kid"? Well, guess what? Most of them are probably abducted by the government for fucked up experiments just like this one. The 2 medical doctors now walk into the room, injecting the 3 children with the substance. We then waited for a good 30 minutes until we noticed changes in the way they spoke to each other. Instead of regular, common English, they started to use a modified and more efficient version of it. Or at least, that's what we think it was. At the 1 hour mark, we started to see changes in the color of their eyes. All of them had brown eyes, but now it seemed to be turning gray. This experiment was only going to last 13 hours. But at this rate, it's gonna be over quicker than we think. I was haunted of what other things may lie dormant. Hour 2. The neurologist concluded that the substance is causing a resetting of the brain. But now, all of a sudden, one of the children mutters the word "safe." We were all left puzzled of what that was supposed to mean. Hour 3. One of the children, Cindy, starts portraying a strange behavior. She starts off by staring at her hands and moving them in an unnatural way. At this point, I was really starting to question what type of modification was made to LSD. Cause in my teen years, I've tried it, and what was being displayed with these children was not even close to what happens. "Safe," Cindy said. "Cindy, is everything alright in there?" One of the doctors spoke through the speaker. She goes on to repeat this word for 30 minutes straight, until she decided to scream it out loud, eventually losing the ability to speak. The doctors at this point had had enough and attempted to open the door and grab the children. But as soon as they tried, many guards came in and grabbed the doctors. Something was strange though. Cindy was the only child showing odd behavior. Rick and Gabriel just stayed there, almost completely fixated on the wall. I assumed they were amazed of what was appearing on the wall, because from personal experience, when you're on LSD, anything can look unnaturally intriguing. But this was a modified version, so I had no clue what to think. All I could do was just correlate things from past experience. Gabriel suddenly gets up and speaks to Rick with their new version of English. After the sentence was muttered out of Gabriel's mouth, him and Rick pick up Cindy and completely beat her up. At this point, all of us has had enough of this and we all wanted to stop this. But the man from before reminds us that if we break contract, certain things can happen to us. And if they were crazy enough to do shit like this, they could certainly get rid of us. So, through fear, we continued. After a good 5 minutes of them beating up on Cindy, they both said in sync, "Safe." At this point, I had come down to two conclusions. Either this drug caused them to believe in a structured religion they created, or they just outright lost their minds. Well, you could say they're the same thing, but I hope you understand, this wasn't easy to decipher. Dr. June, what do you see on the brain scans? Basically the same thing from hour 2. What seems to be resetting of the brain. Hour 6. They are speaking in a language that hardly sounds like English. After a good 30 minutes, both of the boys pick up Cindy's beaten up body and now start to attempt to crack open her skull. At this moment, everyone in the room had to find something to vomit in. After a short period, they were successful in grabbing her brain out. Both of them now seem to be studying every aspect of the brain. Maybe they were able to see things we couldn't. After 10 minutes, they looked at each other and nodded in agreement. They both started breaking bits and pieces of her brain apart, and both of them took a handful of the brain parts and ate them. Now, this wasn't making them the typical zombie, but it was certainly giving them a cannibalistic trait. A brief moment later, one of the neurologists yells out, "Hey, everyone, come check this out." The brain scans are showing an abnormality occurring in the brain. After they ingested those brain parts, there was a spike of what seemed to be a sort of neurogenesis in the brain. So you're basically saying through eating Cindy's brain, they were able to gain more neurons. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened. Hour 7. The boys continue to speak to each other in the unknown language. Rick now walks up to the window, even though he couldn't see us. He knew we could see him. He then gives us this eerie grin with his gray eyes staring deep into all of our souls, and then says, "Safe." Gabriel now seems to be in pain. He yells out in excruciating agony. But from what the neurologist said, there didn't seem to be any activity in the brain scan that indicated any sort of physical pain produced from this substance. So, if anything, Gabriel was yelling in a mental frustration of some sort. Hour 8. Gabriel and Rick sit in front of each other and stare at each other with complete concentration. They both, after a while, started laughing. But the laugh wasn't anything natural. It was completely inhumane. I assumed that whatever this shit was, it gave them the ability to use telepathy. So one main thing all of us understood was that the main effect this substance had was language adaptations. Hour 9. Gabriel gets up and starts to get frustrated. Rick tries to help him, but Gabriel was outraged and started to attack Rick. Both of them fought for at least 30 minutes straight before exhausting to the point where they couldn't physically get up. But once every couple of minutes of rest, they continued to go at it. Towards the end of the hour, they had gained somewhat of a mutual acceptance that something else was more important. Or at least, that's what it seemed like. Hour 10. Out of the blue, Rick starts to speak regular English. "Can you please send in a doctor? I don't feel so well." We all knew better to even send a fly into that room. It was clearly a trap we weren't gonna play into. After we had refused, Rick dips his finger into Cindy's blood and writes "safe" on the wall. While all of this was happening, Gabriel never took his eyes off of the window he knew we were behind. Hour 11. Gabriel stands up, gets Cindy's body, and slams it into the window. He continues this for 30 minutes. All of us turned the other way and covered our ears. We all likely were saying to ourselves, "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Rick then laughs loudly in an unnatural way until he broke his vocal cords like Cindy had at first when she continually screamed "safe." After Gabriel had grown tired, he started to look at Rick with desperation. Hour 12. Rick started to touch the wall in a very peculiar way. He kept on muttering "safe" as he touched the walls. Gabriel then creeps up behind Rick and chokes him with every ounce of strength he had with bloodlust like I've never seen before. He then proceeded to break his skull open and eat certain parts of the brain. Like before, he again gained more neurons in his brain. Hour 13. Gabriel has never once kept his eyes away from the window. He gave us this stare, as if he wanted us to experience the worst pain imaginable. The man who seemed to be in charge of this experiment then walks in. He goes up to the speaker and says, "Gabriel, why have you done all of this?" After a brief pause of him trying to remember the ancient English language he once used, he responded, "Because I'm safe now, and I lust with every cell in my body to make all of you behind that window safe." The man now makes a command into his phone, and shortly after, guards open up the door and shoot the boy with darts. This is where I came in. I was forced to examine his body after. What I found out was shocking. Once the substance was injected, his genome started undergoing all sorts of changes. So basically, he was mutating. How the substance managed to do this was still unknown. The neurologist also noticed that this substance completely changed the neurons in the cerebral cortex, which changed his perception of reality. That's likely what caused him to act so inhumane. After we turned all of our reports in, we were told to head back to the room we all first met. There, all of us looked at each other in complete shock of the events that just transpired. I was the first to speak up. What the hell did we sign up for? I just can't believe they convinced us to do something this horrible, one of the scientists said. The other scientist couldn't even mutter a word. They were completely horrified. The man now walks into the room. "Thank you for your work and contribution. You will be shortly escorted out of this facility. But just remember this. Everything that happened here today will never be spoken of. And well, let's just say we have tabs on you." After a couple of hours, they finally escorted me into a hotel nearby. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. Matter of fact, till this day, I can barely sleep or socialize with other people. The 2 million wasn't worth it at all. I was now a rich man, with a fucked up mind. There was no point. What really messes me up is that these were kids, no older than 12 years old, and they had to endure such a horrific experiment. And I played a hand in this. Even if I wasn't aware of the magnitude, I still had a hand in this. I write to all of you here to finally let go of this burden that's been weighing me down for the past 2 years, hoping that this may help. Just know this: in the shadows lies nothing but pure evil. There is certainly messed up people out there that will do anything imaginable. Be safe, and just next time you pass by a farm, it might just be a government facility that houses, down to the bone, evil experiments.